Hey everybody, welcome back to Plum Figgy. Okay, I think we're at the final stages of this journal. So today we're going to work on putting the covers on or decorating the cover. So I'm starting with a pretty blank slate here. And my thinking is I kind of wanted to do a collage of the papers that I'd used inside the journal. But on this edge right here, I wanted to kind of reinforce that just a little bit more. I did sew down the sari silk binding. I wish I would have done that from the beginning, but I did it okay without messing anything up. But I still wanted to make sure that it was equally strong. So just adding some cardstock here. That's the craft color cardstock, and it's thicker than just like copy weight paper. So I'll use that here, and then I'm going to build onto that as I go. So just making sure it's the right size. Oh, and of course, I have to ink around the edges. But I think I'm going to do that in a minute. I wanted to go back and think through this collaging a little bit more. So here I'm just ripping down this piece of paper and kind of placing it there, thinking I want it to live there. And now I'm just going over to my stash of my leftover papers from this journal, and I definitely wanted to use this piece of paper somewhere on the cover. So just tearing off a chunk of that, and then I'm going to tear around all four edges so that it looks like it's got the ripped look all the way around, which it does. And I'm just kind of moving around, trying to see where I might want it to be. Mostly I'm trying to find a focal point for the cover. And so I'm just going to kind of look through and see if anything catches my eye. I love this paper. And I also love this paper. So I'm trying to decide if it's the right size here or not, and it wasn't, so I'm just going to rip it down. Because I didn't need that whole big sheet for the cover, because most of it would have been hidden, and I didn't really want to waste the whole sheet just for a little peekaboo of it. So yep, just kind of thinking through how I want this to be laid out. I didn't want it to be super busy, but I also wanted it to kind of show a snapshot of what you'd see on the inside. And then I just decided I need the camera paper to be on this cover. So the only one that I had left, well, the scraps that I had weren't quite big enough or quite right for the cover. So I went ahead and tore out another of the 12 by 12 papers. And so now I had measured kind of roughly the size of the spot on the cover that I wanted to put it on. And so I'm using that measurement to tear this 12 by 12 page down to make it work. And I think the cameras are laid out not exactly straight on this paper because everything looks very wonky right here. But in the end, it looks great on the actual book. So I think it was just maybe my grid lines and the paper weren't quite meshing right. I don't know. But I've watched this back a few times now that I've been editing this video, and every time I'm like, why is that so weird? So here I'm just visually kind of trying to decide where I want it to start and end on the cover. And I hate to get rid of too much of the camera, but some of it would have to be removed. So making my mark, and yeah, it's definitely crooked on the paper. It's not it's not me. But yeah, it might be, that's maybe throwing me off here too, because it's taking me forever to line this up. But I'll rip it off here, and then we won't have to worry about that anymore. So, and saving that for another project. Okay, I think I'm gonna rearrange some of this here because I realized that the camera is really going to cover up most of that scribbly letter paper. And so just kind of redoing everything here to see how I really want it to lay. And I don't know why I'm so worried about, I guess I wanted it to be straight, and I didn't want it to go too high or too low here. So spending a lot of time on that, I guess. And then I'm gonna just rebuild my collage. Yeah, here I'm thinking about this page, and I'm going to decide that that one, I'll just use the smaller piece that I had removed from it instead, and that way I can use the other one, the bigger one, for something else, either another project or maybe on the back cover or something. So yeah, I just need a little something in that upper left corner. Okay, yep, still thinking about this. But I think now I'm remembering I still had this other piece, and that's really all I needed to see from it. So it's the perfect size. Just put it in there, Tam. I'm not sure what I'm debating. I think maybe wondering if I wanted to rip around those edges as well or not, since I had done the other two. Okay, so here I have some Tim Holtz number tags. Just wanted to add a little bit more industrial to the journal, and these are great. I love these. I just don't use them often enough, but they're just a perfect project for them. So just decided to, I chose a number at random, and the number happened to be number 46. And I liked it up in the upper right hand corner. So that's where it's gonna go. I just love that little pop of aqua up there. And now I'm doing the glue from the top down method in collage. I don't typically do it this way just because I like to make sure that things are really, really secure. And here you can see I'm having a heck of a time not moving the pieces as I'm adding glue with one hand. So it's a little tricky. I need to practice it more, but I knew I was going to be sewing around this anyway, so it didn't matter if it didn't all get completely glue, if each little piece didn't have glue completely over the back of every one of them, because I will make sure that it is secure. So Oh, yeah, I got glue all over my finger. So I just decided to use that instead of the glue bottle. So I'm gonna sew around all of these first, and I'll add some decorative stitching to several of the pieces. And then after I do that, I'm gonna sew the camera piece on. And then after I do that, I'm gonna add the little metal number on top. And then I will paste everything down to the front of the cover. So first I gotta finish gluing, and then I'll sew, and I'll show you what that looks like. Oh, but wait, I forgot to ink around the edges before I glued everything down. So did that really quick before I sewed anything. And here I'm just getting rid of some extra glue that seemed to have seeped out from somewhere. That's not the order I would have suggested doing it in. Thankfully, I remembered when I did the back page because I didn't do it that way the second time. So just very carefully distressing and trying not to get everything with distress stain on it. And here we have the in progress shot. So I just did some messy stitching all around the edges, and then did some decorative stitching around some of the pieces. And now I'm going to glue down the camera. And then I just did some messy sewing around the edges of all that. A little bit of zigzag at the bottom there. And now we can add our metal charm. I was having a hard time getting those in the way I wanted them to be. I don't know why I was being so fidgety with them, but I like to use the end of my pokey tool to help flatten those out a little bit, just so they won't wiggle around. And then when you add glue on the, and I could have added some Fabri-Tac on the back side of that actual letter number plate, but I didn't. But okay, so here I just added glue to the whole back side of all of this, and now we're just gonna paste this down, and look at that. It looks like we sewed around the whole thing, but really we didn't. So now I'm just gonna go back to the back side, and there you can see I added a little stitching to this sari silk closure to make sure that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and the collaging process begins again. So I definitely wanted to use a piece of that letter paper on the back, and again I'm going to have to try, and I wanted to use some of that background that I had used on the front cover as well, and definitely wanted to use some of that aqua color. So I'm pretty much, I think I have it pretty much how I want it, but the focal point for the back I wasn't as sure about, but then I remembered I had this piece of the phone, and I liked how it was black, and it would kind of be a good juxtaposition for what I had done on the front cover. I also had that typewriter sheet of paper that I had thought about too. So we'll see what I end up choosing. But I just ripped around all four edges again, and look at this. I'm adding my distress stain. So I'm gonna do that. And yes, I do realize that the letters in the letter block piece of paper in the upper left corner of the screen that I'm picking up now have the letters F and U. And trust me, I did not let that go onto the journal the way it was, because that's, yeah. That's not cool. I don't know why they did that, but somebody was not thinking, or somebody thought they were being cute, maybe. But oh, and yes, I needed to add a sheet of this cardstock again um, for the back piece. So I just needed to measure that and make sure it was the right height. I think I'm trying to decide if I like the raw edges enough. And they're a little straighter than I wanted, but decided that they'd be good. They'd be fine. So. And I'm going to ink around the edges on this. Hey, look at me, learning. I have a heck of a time getting this to be straight, though, for some reason. On both of them, I just was, I don't know, challenged. And then I think I decided it was slightly too long still, so I went ahead and just ripped off a little bit more. And then I'll have to ink that again. I don't need to worry about that fourth side to ink that, because all of that's going to get covered up anyway by the rest of the collaging. So, okay, I think I'm happy with that. And now I decided I did want to use this piece, so I'm just going to rip off on all four of those edges, and that's going to be one of my focal pieces. I think the back has 2 focal pieces. Yep, those 2 letters. And I'm just thinking about which letter I want to use, because I'm going to rip this in half here. And I think maybe I chose the F. Nope, I guess I chose the U. So I went ahead and inked around those edges as well. And now I'm kind of taking a look at this typewriter page and trying to decide if that's what I wanted to use here or not. For some reason, I think I just preferred the other one, but I think I wanted to add some more color than what I had on here. So went to my smaller scraps and was just looking in there to see what might catch my eye. Obviously here I have the green metal siding. Oh, and then I guess now I found my phone. So obviously I'm not going to use that entire thing. So I just wanted to take off most of the black on the bottom. And I'm just going to make this square, or straight edged anyway. Inking around that. Alright, so I went back and I found a piece of that darker aqua color in a small strip, and so I decided I wanted to use that somehow, so made one edge ripped, and now I'm just adding some distress stain. And I'll add that to the left side where the craft paper is, but underneath the letter. I just wanted a bit of that peeking out, just to add a touch of color back here. All right, so I've got that little strip of paper where I kind of want it, and I thought it needed a little bit more down at the bottom, so I went back to that greenish colored metal siding picture and took off a bit of that and then inked around that, as you just saw, and I'll add that kind of towards the bottom of this little collage there, but cleaning up my mess first. That was something my mom taught me, not in crafting necessarily, but as I cook, she taught me to clean as I cook, and I guess it's kind of translated into other areas of my life. I don't even know that I'm doing it. And you don't see a lot of it because I do edit a lot of it out because I know it can get boring to watch, but it's funny for me to watch back and as I'm editing these videos to see my funny little habits like that. I don't know if if you other YouTube artists do the same thing or think the same things, but it's kind of funny for me to see that. So, all right, just gonna ink around the rest of this, and then I think I'll be ready to glue. So I'm gonna fast forward through this a little bit too. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if you could move this fast in real life? All right, so I'm just placing my pieces again and then just making a mental note of where everything kind of went. I'm going to use a couple different glues here. So used my Uhu glue stick for the pieces there and then switched back over to the Fabri-Tac. Just gluing the pieces that are going to touch the paper that's not actually touching the book yet. And then I will glue, as you see here, those pieces together and then do my sewing, which I just did. Well, I didn't show you the beforehand. I did the same process as before, as the front cover. So I did the background, did some crazy stitching, and then I added the feature piece. And then now I am ready to glue it down, which is what I'm doing now. So, not done yet. We still have a spine to work on. All right, so for my spine, I knew I wanted to use some of that fabric that I'd already used. So here I'm just measuring the height, and the height is a little bit deceptive on this journal because those fabrics on the top and bottom, those are wider than or taller than the actual book itself. So I wanted to make sure that the spine fabric was a little bit more true to the size of the height of the book, if that makes sense. So using some of the muslin fabric that I had as my base, and then I'm grabbing a few of the others that I really loved. So the gray pinstripe, and then the darker gray with the script on it, and I'm gonna do, I guess, a fabric collage on the spine. So I'm just gonna cut off or rip off some of my pieces of fabric. That one's not as easy to rip. It's pretty thick. It's upholstery fabric, so. And I think I decided that that one was a little bit too wide, so I'm gonna make it a little more narrow, and then I will rip it a little bit more because I don't think I need, oh no, maybe I don't. I think I don't remember what I did here. Well, I guess we will see, won't we? So I think I'm just, just double checking. I didn't want to completely cover up that stitching on the front. So just kind of double checking and making sure that this is actually the right size before I, spend my time decorating it, just to find out that it's not quite right. Oh, it was too wide. That's what it was. So I had more fabric here than I actually needed. So I'm just kind of measuring to see how much I can remove. And then so that I can get the, I guess, fabric collage composition the way I want it, I opened it like this. And then I'm just going to lay my pieces down this way and get them the way that I want them. But first I got to get rid of all the little pieces of string. All right, I don't think I cut that one in half. I think I decided I liked having it the full length so that you would only see a little bit of the muslin behind. And then now I'm placing my other fabric. Oh, and then yes, that's right. I did grab a piece of that sari silk so that it was not just the three different ones. I've got 4 now, so it's a little bit more variety and different textures too. So I'm just going to pin this, and then I'll take this to the sewing machine and get that all sewed together. I didn't use any glue in constructing this. I've been sewing my whole life. I'm not a seamstress or necessarily all that great at sewing, but I've done enough that I can handle something like this. Oh, I guess I did tack down the very top of that sari silk with a little bit of the glue stick, but that was it. So all right, so here's my crazy stitching. Added a little bit of decorative stitching as well, and so now I'm ready to glue this down to the spine, and I think we're gonna be all done. So I'm gonna pay more attention to the front here because like I said, I didn't really want to cover up that messy stitching on the front cover. But mostly I want to make sure it's evenly spaced in the front and the back as much as possible. And then just gonna grab my Fabri-Tac glue. And since I have several layers of fabric, I'm being a little bit more liberal with the glue here than I normally would be. It will show through if you're not careful, and even with several pieces of fabric it will. Trust me, I've had it happen. So I am still smoothing it out here with my finger, but I want to make sure it's going to stay put because it isn't being sewn on, so I just wanted to be sure that it's going to be good. So yeah, all that I have to do at this point is add the glue and get it on there. And there we have it. We have a finished journal. Yay! It's so cool. I really love this journal. Like I said, I'm definitely going to make another one of these. It's not going to be exactly the same, but I will use the same papers and pretty much the same techniques. May not, well, I don't think I have any more of that green fabric. I'll have to look. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little craft with me journey, and I will see you all very soon.